So good afternoon and welcome to everybody. Thanks for joining. Thanks for joining for our first ever live Q&A with our UK project team. So my name is Jackie Highfield and I'm the UK Programme Director. So I want you to imagine that you're 14 years old. Your home is in local authority residential care and you are hundreds of miles from where you grew up or where your friends are. You don't trust adults. They've let you down all your life, and this morning the older lad who lives on the floor above you has threatened you again. You're scared, you're feeling lost, angry, and so lonely. Enough now. You head towards the local railway station with no real plan, but knowing that anything must be better than how today started. Sadly, in the UK, stats developed by Missing People and the National Crime Agency reveal that over 215,000 children and young people are reported missing or run away from home. 7 out of 10 of those children have been sexually exploited, and over half had experienced conflict and abuse at home. Now, you may be familiar with this quote. It's from Reverend Tutu. There comes a point where we need to stop just pulling people out of the river. We need to go upstream and find out why they're falling in. Well, at Railway Children, our UK mission is to help both the rail industry and the public to look out for these young people, to be curious and flag vulnerabilities onto British Transport Police, who complete over 10,000 safeguarding and vulnerability reports for children and young people every year. So our work includes providing consultation and training to the train operating companies, helping them to play a proactive role in safeguarding. We set up and chair safeguarding action groups in rail stations all over the UK, engaging the wider station community and encouraging bystander intervention. And we work in partnership with British Transport Police to identify and provide direct support to some of the UK's most vulnerable children and young people. Today, we're looking forward to sharing with you some of the detail of that work and give you a chance to meet and ask questions to the staff who are providing the support on the ground. So joining me today are 2 of our most active safeguarding champions, Steve O'Callaghan from British Transport Police and Hayley Yates from TransPennine Express, also known as TPE. And from our UK project team, Laura Broadbent and Liz Gibbons, 2 of our project workers, and Gaynor Little and Joe Clay, our regional managers, who you'll meet later. So what are we going to do today? Well, first I'm going to show you a short film and give you an overview of our work here in the UK, and to show how, with your support, we can continue to work with our partners to improve children's safety on the rail networks. We will hear from Hayley on how at TPE they identify young people at risk on the rail network, and then from Steve, who's going to explain a little bit more about our partnership with BTP, and then on to our project workers, and then our young people. And finally, I will hand over to a team of panelists who's going to answer the many questions that have already come in. And as you can see there, we do have a chat box facility open. So please feel free to add any additional questions you may have for the panel throughout the session. So let's look at the film.
Every day, vulnerable children travel the UK's rail system. They might be escaping violence at home, bullying at school, or lured to meet strangers who groomed them online. Some are exploited to deliver drugs for criminals, and some are planning to take their own lives. They're not homeless, starving, or fleeing war, but they're in just as much danger. British Transport Police encounter more than 10,000 of these children every year, and many more go undetected. You may not be able to spot those at risk, but railway children can. We're working directly with British Transport Police, training their staff and the station community to be our eyes and ears, looking out for children in danger and stepping in before it's too late. When those on the transport front line identify a child at risk, they refer them to railway children. When a child is in danger of falling through the cracks, we're there for them and their families. When other services run out of funds, out of time, and out of options, we keep going. It's not easy to change the lives of children who have been let down again and again. But over the last 25 years, we've learned the best ways to help them. We know it takes time, and we won't stop until we break the cycle of trauma and know we've made a difference to their lives and futures. With your help, we can make the UK rail network safe for the thousands of vulnerable children who pass through our stations every year. Together, we can reach them before they're lost for good. Thank you.
So as I said in my introduction, we work really closely with the train operating companies to ensure that their staff are confident in identifying signs of vulnerability and know just what action to take when they come across a child at risk on the rail network. So now I'm going to pass over to Hayley from TPE to talk more about this relationship.
Hi, so my name's Hayley Yates. I'm the Collaboration Improvement Manager at TPE. I've been there about 18 months, and it's we heavily support the safeguarding of young children. It's a key aspect within the train company to say, keep people safe, keep the customers safe, keep the staff safe. We're quite passionate about this. We have got a lot of members of staff on the floor, on the all across the stations, with eyes on, seeing various different things. So if there's something being raised, we can look into that and deal with that. There's quite a lot of staff at TPE been trained as safeguarding champions, so there is some sort of things to look out for, let's say, when we are seeing young children, young people out on the station. So there's certain procedures we follow. We just want to keep everybody safe, make sure they get back to the homes and the families. So that's quite a big thing. TPE have also managed to get a safeguarding accreditation, which shows how passionate we are about supporting and making sure people are safe. And this also has, I'm passionate about this, and I've also done this railway sleepover. I spent one night at the Piccadilly Manchester station raising funds for railway children. So this is quite a close charity that I'm supporting. And keen to keep supporting within the next months and couple of years.
Thank you so much, Hayley. And I know that in your role, you're incredibly busy anyway, but you do go over and above supporting us. So I just want to say a massive thank you. It's much appreciated. Okay, so now I'm going to hand over to our British Transport Police officer, Steve, who is going to talk a little bit more about our partnership.
Oh, yeah. Good afternoon, everyone. So I'm Sergeant Steve O'Callaghan from the BTP, and I've been a police officer for 19 years, 13 years of which were in Derbyshire Constabulary before transferring to BTP for the remaining 6 years. So I have a vast array of experience in safeguarding and vulnerability from a policing perspective, and I'm currently working as the TPE liaison officer. So BTP have been working in partnership with the Railway Children since 2014. Since then, the partnership has grown and developed in such a way that as an industry and a police force, we are now thinking and reacting to safeguarding and vulnerability in a different way when we used to. The very first Safeguarding on Transport project run by the Railway Children was launched in 2017 in the Northwest at Manchester Piccadilly Station, completing the highest number of safeguarding referrals for young people in comparison, excuse me, to other stations across the county. It was clear that young people being found in areas such as Manchester Piccadilly were often missing from home or care, being groomed online or getting drawn into county lines, getting caught up in antisocial behaviour and sadly wanting to end their lives on the tracks. And they were in dire need of support and help. It is the same today across the rail network. More young people who need help pass through this station than any other. And sadly, beneath all of the reasons why these young people are at the station and are at risk of stories of crisis, trauma, harm, loss and neglect. And with the help of the Railway Children, we at BTP are able to ensure that the young people we meet are getting the support they need. The Railway Children have been imperative in how they've engaged and prioritised vulnerable persons. Whilst working alongside both BTP and other agencies, this joint collaboration, both within BTP and the Railway Children, to identify and protect those that are vulnerable on the network. The Railway Children are experts in their field, and this successful collaboration ensures that vulnerable people on the network can access the right support that is needed. So on a personal level, I've been working very closely with the Railway Children over the past 6 years, in both my previous role as a response sergeant at Sheffield, and more recently as the TPE liaison sergeant. So it's been fantastic to continue this close-knit working relationship between BTP, the train operating companies and the Railway Children. We've set up numerous awareness campaigns and initiatives around vulnerability and safeguarding alongside agencies, including the Home Office forces, the Samaritans, NHS Liaison and Diversion. The Railway Children have also been a key partnership in a safeguarding group that I've set up at Hull. The Railway Children have also provided safeguarding training to frontline rail staff across the network, which has always been received with really positive feedback. They've also been an absolutely integral organisation to work alongside in both assisting TPE to obtain their safeguarding on rail accreditation and in respect of a multi-agency safeguarding hub that we're setting up on the network at Hull Station. The aim of the multi-agency hub will be a first point of call for those in crisis, where numerous partnership agencies, including the Railway Children, will be located to help the vulnerable. This will be exemplary in pulling together both statutory and voluntary services to tackle vulnerability. There are many day-to-day examples of where this partnership has helped protect children at risk. When children are located by officers, they conduct various safeguarding checks prior to taking the child back to their parents or carers. These events include contacting social services, care homes, the policing systems, to name but a few. Every safeguarding form involving a juvenile gets picked up by the Railway Children. This is integral, as in my previous role at Sheffield, where a number of rail staff called officers over to speak to a young person due to concerns they had. The young person was sat at the station and appeared to be around 12 years old. She was not dressed for the conditions. She looked tired and dirty. Officers spoke with her and it was clear that she was emotional and scared. She said that she didn't want to go home because she'd fallen out with her mum. She said that her dad was not about now. Officers tried to reassure her and make her feel comfortable with a warm drink. Officers carried out the relevant safeguarding checks and it was clear that there was a complex family history. Social care decided it was safe to take her home, which we did. Following this, officers submitted an SVR form, and in the officers' comments section, they said that they felt the young person would benefit from some intervention from the Railway Children. The SVR form stands for Safeguarding and Vulnerability Report, which is what BTP officers complete when they have had an interaction with a vulnerable young person in which further action is required. This then goes to the vulnerability unit within BTP, and referrals are made to social care and the Home Office police forces. Referrals will then go to the Railway Children in their project areas. It's reassuring to know that as an officer, we have the relationship with the Railway Children and can make referrals so that vulnerable young people can receive the support they need. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Steve. And like Hayley, you go over and above all the time, and your support to us is so valued and appreciated. So I do want to give you a big public shout out. So thank you very much.
Very kind of you. Thank you.
And so, as Steve was just describing, this is where our project workers come in. After receiving a referral from them, our frontline teams get in touch with the young person and their families or carers and offer support. And I'm going to pass you over to one of our amazing project workers, Laura, who's going to tell you more.
Good afternoon, everyone. So as Jackie said, I'm project worker for the Yorkshire team. I've been with Railway Children for about 2 years now, but have worked with children and young people for approximately 15 years in various roles. So as Steve just said then, when British Transport Police officers meet with a child or young person, they will complete what is called the SVR form, or the Safeguarding and Vulnerability Report. That is essentially the referral, that's processed and triaged by our referrals coordinator when that comes through from the vulnerability unit. And our referrals coordinator is that first point of contact for that family. When that allocation has been made to a project worker, we then aim to make contact with that child and family the same day, because that relationship building early is key for that support to start quite quickly. So we will do that as project workers. It may be that we speak with a young person and a parent at home, and we book in what's called a welfare visit. On the welfare visit, that's usually at that child's home, so we can see who's living in that home, identify needs, risks, but also the strengths, what's going well in that family, who else is a part of that family support network, what other professionals might be working with the family, which we do see a lot of the young people that are referred may well be working with social care already. They may have a CAMHS worker, but we may be that missing link, or it may be that there's no services involved and we are there to signpost and refer as is needed. One of the key things that we do at the safety plan, at the welfare visit, is a safety plan. So what that helps us to do is identify key areas of intervention. So for example, a child may be at the station because they're not at school. It might be a number of different reasons why that child's not at school, and it may be that we find a key contact for the school and we can be a step to making some changes there. It may be that on the safety plan we're looking at strategies around low mood and preventing a young person presenting at the station around their mental health. Oftentimes we're seeing more and more that young people are actually travelling by train. So part of the safety plan may be looking at how parents inform that as well. So it may be sharing the British Transport Police text number and ensuring that the parents feel empowered to not only report the child as missing to the Home Office force, but that they are able to do so with British Transport Police as well. And that may be that child is picked up on the rail network far sooner than they would have been beforehand. We do have a great relationship with the Vulnerability Unit, British Transport Police, so that relationship with them is ongoing from the point that we get that referral. So we are feeding back, we're feeding back to the officers some of the time as to how that relationship and support is developing, and the officers may see the young person on the network again and a secondary referral comes through, but all of the time we're having those conversations with the Vulnerability Unit. At the welfare visit, further visits may be booked in at that point, and that's with a view to looking at a full programme of support, where it may be a short-term piece of work, it may be a longer-term piece of work. And I know that I feel very proud that the families that we work with are choosing to work with us. We're not a statutory service. They don't have to attend our appointments. The child's not going to be in breach of any conditions should they not meet with us. And I think that really highlights the work that we do, that those families continue to want to meet with us, because that relationship building from the beginning is key, and they trust us enough that we can make changes and be there for as long as is needed.
Brilliant, thanks Laura. And I'm sure there's, I can see some questions coming into the chat. I'm sure when we do our Q&A session, I have an opportunity to ask a little bit more from our project workers. But now I'm just going to move on to the highlight of the day. We're going to show you a short film that was designed and created by our youth ambassadors. And in this video, they talk about the impact that working with railway children has had on their lives. And these really inspiring young people, through our youth participation group, steer our projects, ensuring that our work is young person-led. So they've been helping us with lots of internal affairs, such as recruitment, marketing, delivery, our project delivery, and use their voice to influence the change they want to see, both locally and nationally. So we can play that young person's video, please.
The challenges that young people like myself face on a daily basis, a lot of the time relate to mental health. I myself wasn't attending school as much as I should be with mental health. And then COVID came along and lockdown came, and when I should have been interacting with my mates, and mental health is definitely a big factor for young people like myself.
The main risk to using the railway is the young person, no matter what age, really is you can get overlooked quite easily because people will see you and instantly think that you've got a parent or guardian, so there could be underlying issues with the reason that young person's there.
When I was referred to by the British Transport Police after an incident regarding the railway, first I was already undergoing support from CAMHS and the CAMHS counsellor that I was referred to, and he linked in with the CAMHS counsellor and were able to provide further support once he'd linked in with them. After that, they were able to visit me at home, and that allowed me to get to know them more and my family to get to know them more, and it allowed us to then plan opportunities out, like trips out. I was able to go and visit a train depot, which allowed me to get to know people and experience the career of a railway.
Almost 6 years ago, back when I was 12, I was referred to the railway children through, I believe it was the British Transport Police as well, and then started seeing them due to previous circumstances that had happened, and then since then they've definitely helped a lot more than people might realise. It's helped me to come on absolute leaps and bounds from where I was previously when it all kicked off, and knowing that since starting seeing them that I was able to continuously go back to them, and mentally, physically, emotionally, it's helped in an astonishing amount. There's not been any point in time where I felt like that I can't go to them. It's boosted my confidence, it's boosted happiness. There's a lot less occasions where I'm feeling even slightly sad. And if it ever does get to a dark place, I know that I can turn to them and they'll always be there to help.
The impact that Railway Children's had on the challenges I've faced has allowed me to go out more, because previously I wasn't really going out, I wasn't interacting with anyone. But with different resources provided to me by the Railway Children and the Railway Children themselves, they have allowed me to go out more and explore my interests, such as the railway.
Never been a time where they've made me feel uncomfortable or felt like I've had to do something that I don't. They've always taken it at the pace that I'm comfortable with, and so it's always helped to make me feel 1,000 times better, make me feel like there is hope out there, that there is always a possibility for me to reach a new high emotional feeling and not fall down.
Looking back to where I was at the time, I was in a dark place, but the Railway Children have allowed me to come out of that dark place. They've offered me a light, someone to talk to, alongside CAMHS, and linking in with my interests, they provide different opportunities for me to explore my interests.
It's the way it's changed my life being with Railway Children is it's made me who I am today compared to how I was 7 years ago, thinking that there wasn't any hope, that I was in it alone, when the impact is had, I now know that there are people there that I can go to, whether it be railway children, mums or dads or wherever, I can speak to them, and it's boosted confidence. My emotional state is a lot higher, mental state is as high as it's ever been in the past.
The impact that Railway Children project workers have had on me is that they've been not just a project worker, but they've been such a good friend, someone to talk to when in need. They've been just there for me all the time, and I wouldn't want to change the world for it.
Amazing young people. I think there might be a couple of them watching today, so big thank you to them for taking part and doing that video for us. And you want to see them in interviews. They're quite incredible. Okay, so with that, it's time to open the floor up to our Q&A session. I see we've got a number of them in the chat. So thank you for everybody who's already sent in questions. We did actually have some ahead of time, and I see people have been throwing in questions via the chat book. Keep them coming. We probably won't get time to answer all of them today, but if there are some that we don't get to answer, we will come back to you after the session. So if people would just like to join me, you've already met some of our panelists. You've met Hayley, Steve and Laura. Welcome also to Liz, who's one of our project workers, and to Joe and Gaynor, two of our UK regional managers. So first question, and I think I'm going to send this over to Steve and Hayley, two of our partnership individuals. So what are the most common reasons that young people find themselves vulnerable at train stations, and how do you identify them?
Yeah, so I'm quite happy to answer this one, Hayley. So safeguarding and vulnerability is unfortunately quite a big problem on the rail network, with the main hotspots being the inner city hubs. There are a lot of interventions that come in via the sort of travelling public, via the text 61016 number, which is the BTP confidential reporting number. However, a lot of our interventions actually come from frontline rail staff, including members of rail staff from the TOCs, the various train operating companies. And this predominantly involves young people travelling on the rail network who could be missing from care home. So we get called, we meet the training, and we as police officers conduct the relevant safeguarding checks with the young people. I feel it's really important to remember that vulnerability can present in many ways. So there are obvious signs for colleagues to look out for, including sort of physical health issues such as learning disabilities, impairment, age-related concerns and mobility issues. But I also think it's imperative to say that there are less obvious signs for colleagues to look for, and these can be frontline rail staff who do get trained in safeguarding, so do go sort of above and beyond with what they do, and it allows them to look for these less obvious sort of signs. And these can become, evident during their interactions with people. So TPE, for example, work very closely with the Railway Children and have gained their sort of safeguarding on rail accreditation, and they have 34 safeguarding champions. So it's just about the sort of interaction that the staff have within, when they're dealing with the young people, and then the subsequent passing over to BTP, who do, as I mentioned earlier, all the sort of safeguarding checks, and these can be with agencies such as social services, etc., care homes, and we just make sure that the right sort of protocols are put in place. And on the safeguarding forms that I mentioned earlier, the SPR forms, that all the relevant information is put on there for the Railway Children to pick up, and then they do their actions for there. So it's just really important that we all sort of work together in the way we do, to ensure we do the best for the young people out there. Sorry if that was a long-winded answer, but
no, appreciate it's a complex issue, right?
Yeah, very complex. Yeah,
young people who are victims as well of criminal exploitation, such as running county lines,
yeah,
etc. And it's that vulnerability that, if we can catch them a little bit early, prevents them from becoming exploited in that way. Is there anything, Hayley, you wanted to add to that?
No, I think Steve's very knowledgeable on this topic and is very keen to support in any way he can. So from a train point of view, we do support BTP and the other rail providers. So it's just a case of being visible to support anybody who feels they need to speak out to anybody, or we can reach out to them and see if they need support.
Thank you. Thanks, David.
I think it's just important to say, and I forgot to say this before, but a lot of the initial reports come in as ticket irregularity issues. So it may just be someone travelling on it, without a ticket, etc. And it very much opens up into what you just said, sort of county lines and vulnerability. Yeah. So it's very much the train operators and the rail staff are their sort of eyes and ears on the ground, and through their intervention, it can open up sort of all sorts of things.
Yeah. Okay, many thanks to both of you. I've had a number of questions actually just asking more about the type of work that's some of interventions really that our project workers are able to provide for our young people. So I think I'm going to direct that over to Laura, if that's okay, Laura.
So the work can really vary, and as I've said before, that can be a short-term piece of work or even a longer-term piece of work. For those that are working with other services, or a key part of my work is establishing who that support network is and who the professionals are working with that young person. So that's always a really good starting point to might be attendance at meetings. They're not always child protection or child in need, but getting everybody around the table and identifying roles and who is doing what really, so that we know what our intervention will be. The work itself can, and Liz, I'm sure you'll agree with me here, it varies throughout our journey with that child. So you might get that starting point, and as Steve said again, it might be that they've been picked up for not paying a fare or not having a ticket. But when you meet that child, there's so much else going on behind the scenes. Whether they've been excluded from school, it might be that they have ADHD or autism, which will change how we work with that young person, and meeting with school, that can be really helpful as well, because a child might have extra support in school and they can support how we get our message across to those young people. So for example, there's a young girl that I'm working with at the moment where school will book me an hour with her to do our structured sessions. Within that hour, I'm lucky if I get maybe 20, 30 minutes, but where we're actually doing some real interactive work around exploitation, healthy relationships and consent. And week to week, different things might flag up that need my attention more than the sessions themselves. So that a lot of it can be follow-up crisis response. It may be that, as we work with a child, that it does move into child protection because there's different concerns that are highlighted. We're very lucky in the Yorkshire team to work alongside our community engagement worker, Kim. So as I said, when we go out to the welfare visit and we're looking at that family approach, and we might meet other siblings or the parents and carers, some of our work might be working directly with that parent, looking at things around financial support or even bereavement. Many families are feeling the effects of the cost of living crisis and post-COVID. So having Kim on board can help us look at more targeted services that are local to that family. And it might be a case of signposting or referring on. But we always want to get to a point where that family feels empowered enough that they don't need us there. Or, we are referring on to a service that can better support their needs at that time. So we'd always discuss what that planned ending would look like, and have an exit strategy with that family. And what's really, really nice to see is that some of our young people, as you've seen in the video, are now moving into what we call aftercare, where we're touching base with them, but they can then be involved in other opportunities like the youth participation programme, and interviewing and making amazing videos such as the one you've seen. So yeah, there's lots of different things that we do.
Can I just throw in a bit of an after question there about the types of things that people are seeing? Because I know across within the press now, there's lots of talk about young people's mental health. Have you really seen an escalation in the referrals coming through to you around mental health? Has that been a difference? Seen a difference?
I think that's always going to be the case, particularly with the likes of social media and certainly post COVID. I think we underestimate that now, that it seems to have gone away, and it really hasn't. These children that are 14 are your 11-year-olds that COVID happened to, that missed out on a big chunk of schooling or socialising. So of course that's had an impact on the mental health. I think one of the bigger reasons that we see is young people who are missing from home, which will ultimately lead to poor mental health, because those push-pull factors, they know that they may be repercussions of them being away from their support network and away from their family home or where they're living. I don't know if Liz, Joe, Gaynor, you want to add anything to that?
I was just going to say, with mental health, it's the severity of it that's increasing, where we've seen young people hospitalised because of the mental health. And it's still important for us to support them in the hospital and go and see them, because sometimes we're the only visitors that they get. So I think it's that's gone up, as well as the number, but it's the actual, as I said, the severity of the mental health issues that we're coping with.
Thanks,
Liz. A lot of pressures on services, isn't there, as well? For young people with mental health, sometimes there's often long waiting lists and a lot of demand on services, and often young people really still don't want to talk about their mental health and feel quite isolated. So it's great that we're able to offer that opportunity to the young people who are referred to us to have those open conversations and support where we can.
Brilliant. Thanks, everyone. And the next question actually references COVID. So one of the questions is, how has your work evolved since COVID, and what does the next 5 years look like in terms of your work? So more of a strategic question, which I'll pose to one of our regional managers, Joe.
Thanks, Jackie. Yeah, I'd say the work has evolved a lot since COVID, and during COVID, really, literally the second week after everyone sort of realised what was happening after lockdown, we had to work really quickly to look at how we can adapt our work to meet the needs of our young people and our families that we supported. And I think, I've worked in sort of youth work for a long time, but this was a real period of time when we really sort of embraced technology. So we looked at, getting young people who might have not had sort of access to technology, like phones, tablets and things like that in the immediate. And then also looking at how we did our direct work. So there was a lot of video calls and things like that, which we might not have done before. And I think that's been a real sort of legacy from that, in a positive sense, where we've been able to look at, varying our approach in terms of that relationship building with our young people. Some young people might not work very well face to face. They might struggle with making eye contact. They might not, necessarily want to meet up with you face to face, but actually we can offer phone calls, we can offer text support, we can do that support over a video call. So I think it has really opened us up in terms of some of the lessons that we've learned from COVID and how we can then move on to support our young people. And then in terms of like moving forward, it's a real important time for us, in terms of some of the work that we're doing. I think what I'd like to see is, might be pie in the sky, blue sky thinking and all that, but is to see more of the UK covered by our project teams. That'd be amazing. As you can see, the project has grown and grown and grown, from the Manchester project to London to Leeds to Birmingham to Glasgow, and I'd like to see that continue. I'd also like to see the momentum maintained around the safeguarding action groups. I think that's really, really important. Even in the last year of the work we've been doing around those, you can really start to see some real positive outcomes and relationships being started to form in those local areas. But more important, sorry, Jackie.
Well, could you just explain a little bit more about the safeguarding action groups?
Yeah, so the safeguarding action groups look to bring together key stakeholders from across railway stations. So that might be your larger hubs, like Steve alluded to earlier, in terms of your Manchester Piccadillys, your Waterloos, your Eustons, your Glasgows. And it's a real simple concept of getting the right people, the right stakeholders from across the station together to discuss vulnerability and safeguarding. What is the safeguarding picture for that station and that surrounding area? So it's not just looking internally, but also looking what's happening in that approach to the station, in the local community, and in the wider sort of rippling out from there. And that's where we then look, once we've established that core group internally, we'll look at, you know, inviting partners externally. So if there's a particular issue around youth homelessness, for example, we might look to work with an organisation like Shelter. If we're having particular issues around mental health, we might look at involving Samaritans. So these groups can work really well in terms of meeting the needs of that local area.
Brilliant. Thanks, Joe. That's interesting stuff. Okay, so my next question is a little bit more about the direct work, and how do we evidence actually that we are making an impact? So Gaynor, the question is, what difference does your work have on children and their families? If I can pass that to you.
Yeah, sure. So that's a bit of a huge question to summarise in a short time.
Quite a big question, yeah.
It is. So I think for me the greatest difference we make is life-saving interventions. So a lot of the young people we work with come to us with mental health issues, or they're really unhappy and they've been exploited or grooming, and we need to support them to find a pathway or find a way of improving their circumstances. So it's really important that we walk side by side with our young people through various experiences, and a lot of the young people we work with have history of trauma or crisis point. So we have a huge responsibility to support those young people in the best way that we can and help them move forward. And the difference, I think, is you can see it in that video with those two young people. That proves the difference. You know, we can talk about our work so much, and I'm so passionate, and all our teams are so passionate about what we do, but to hear from those young people is just incredible. And there's more incredible young people like that and families that we work with that will be able to kind of demonstrate that impact. But for us, the difference and the priority is keeping young people safe. We want to help them achieve their full potential. And the difference you can see in our Safeguarding on Transport programme is in some of the stats and data, but also from those small kinds of changes, those small wins, Joe always says, those softer outcomes. So some of it can be around maybe working with a young person who wouldn't have any eye contact with you in the beginning, didn't want to meet with you, was really quite shy, timid. But, you know, 4 or 5 sessions, 6 sessions in, they're engaging. It might be a young person who didn't really want to engage, and then you get a text out the blue to say, I'm really struggling with this, can you help me with it? But it could be if the young person's turning up on time, you know you're making a difference and you've built a really trusting relationship with that young person. And for some of our young people as well, it's just you go to pick them up or you go to do a session with them and the shower's in the dress and they're looking like they've taken care of themselves that day, or they've eaten a breakfast, or they'll go out and eat something with you because beforehand they were too shy and too timid to do that. So there's so many differences that we make, and I think what's really important to say is to achieve those smaller differences, but also the big differences. That's not an easy fix, it's not quick, which is why we say, you know, we're here for as long as it takes, because we know that the experiences that have led up to that point where that young person is referred to us by British Transport Police, you can't unfix that quickly. You can't do it in a 12-week programme. It's not a tick box exercise. Every young person is unique and needs a bit of a bespoke support plan to help them move forward. And, you know, we have young people coming back for our support. Sometimes if a case is closed, you know, we've had staff get messages from young people saying, I know I'm still not really working with you every week, but could you help me with this problem? So Laura mentioned the aftercare programme that we've got, which is for young people to just keep in touch and touch base, and we just check in with them at an agreed period of time. And then we've got our great youth participation group, which again is an opportunity for people to grow and to develop. So there's so many differences. I could probably talk for a lot longer, but some of the stats just quickly to share with you. So we have to evaluate our work, you know, we need to prove to funders and also to show that this model is a success, our Safeguarding on Transport programme. So last year, for example, 79% of young people that we worked with said our supporters help improve their well-being. So such as managing their emotions, helping to access other support and making less impulsive decisions. So then 78% of young people said their personal safety has improved. So that could be about reducing the number of times that we're missing, which is a huge factor and why young people do get referred to us. Or they disengage with negative peer groups, or they understood a little bit more about the risks and the safety that they needed to think about. And then the last one was just 78% of young people said they'd improved their relationships with key adults. So for us as well, it's really important that we engage with families, with parents and carers and guardians, and encourage them to have open relationships, because we know often these are the foundations for young people, and things can be resolved if they just continue to talk and we support and continue to offer that to them as a family. So lots of big and small differences, but all having significant impact on young people. And really, for me, that shows our commitment to young people to work with them for as long as it takes, and also shows kind of that the partnership with BTP is working. So,
brilliant. Thank you so much, Gaynor. Well, this is an interesting question, and I'm going to send this over to you, Jo. What is the toughest part of your job?
Yeah. For me, I think it's quite an easy one. Obviously, we're dealing and working with some mega complex issues that our young people face and our families face every day. I've done this work for nearly 13 years now, working, you know, on the front line with children, young people and families in the voluntary sector, and it don't get any easier, because every young person, every family, every situation is unique, and you know, this job will constantly throw you curveballs, you know, because we're working with people and their complex situations. And I just think, you know, that can be quite difficult at times, but it's about how we support each other as a team and as an organisation, so we can remain, you know, strong to support those young people when they need it the most. And I think, you know, I know we touched on it quite a lot, but COVID has thrown its own unique issues that none of us has ever experienced, but, you know, particularly working in youth work and things like that, it was a completely different way of working. But also, like Laura said earlier, you know, the amount of school time young people have missed, the amount of time they've missed with their peers, the social isolation that might have caused, you know, that is all having a knock-on effect, and that is really difficult for our young people to face. So yeah, in a nutshell, I would say that, you know, the general sort of supporting vulnerable young people can be difficult at times, but I know as a team and as an organisation, we work our hardest to make sure they get the best possible outcomes, and that makes it a lot easier to know that we're there, you know, to support these children, young people, to be fair, yeah.
Thanks for your honesty there, Jo. It's not an easy question to answer. So conversely, I've got one I'm going to throw to you, Liz. I don't think we've heard from you yet. So can you talk about the highlight of your job?
Well, I've been with Railway Children for 6 years now, and there's been many highlights, but still for me, the biggest highlight is actually working with the young people, getting to know them, building up a trusting working relationship so that they feel safe. And then we can address the issues, you know, and over time lead and help them through, you know, to solutions, and for them to make the choices that make them safer. And then as they do that, we see them grow in confidence, and things like them going back to education, relationships improved, and, you know, we stop seeing them being exploited by different people. And as I say, I think watching the video before and them young people just makes me so proud of the work we've done, because when we met them two boys, they were not in the place that they are now. You know, they have gone through a lot of difficulties to get to that stage. And that is just a massive highlight. But it is actually, because they are a difficult group, teenagers, but you know what, I just love working with them. And that is the highlight for me, is to break down them barriers and get in there and start coming up with solutions. And it is tiny wins, you know, nothing's, over time it might be massive, but it's very small steps. And that's just, you know, it's just brilliant to see them and to get to know them and the families.
Thanks, Liz. Okay, so just checking, just a little time check here. We've probably got a little bit, we've got a little bit more time, so we can probably get a couple more questions in. So we've got one about the rail industry. So this is, given the current challenges facing the UK rail industry and forthcoming financial constraints, are railway children still getting the support they need from the train operating companies and Network Rail to carry out their vital work? So can you get this one, Joe?
Yeah, not a problem. I'd say that, well, throughout my 4 years of being at the Railway Children, I've been blown away by the railway, to be honest, how sort of such a big, you know, machine it is, but also the support that the Railway Children gets from the industry as a whole. You know, we're in that really unique position, really. And, you know, I think that really struck home to me when I stood on the platform waiting to do the National Three Peaks last year at Crewe, and there was like 130 people there from countless different organisations within the rail industry, all, you know, giving up their time, raising funds to go and do that event. But then there's all sorts of other examples that we, you know, in our day-to-day, such as, you know, TOCs allowing us to use their meeting rooms for our team away days, you know, ongoing support around the safeguarding action groups that I've mentioned. You know, without the TOCs involved in the rail industry, it wouldn't get anywhere. You know, helping us raise awareness around vulnerability. You know, some of our days of action that we've done, such as the Stop Child Exploitation Days. You know, across the UK, we had various different members of the rail industry there supporting us in various different stations. So I think, you know, as well as that, you know, really sort of important fundraising side of things that I've seen firsthand, you know, the little things like, you know, I've got a contact at so-and-so who works for so-and-so who might be able to help you out with that. You know, I've found it to be such a helpful industry where people want to get the right things done and will sort of go above and beyond to make sure that it happens. So yeah, that's been my experience in the last 4 years, and yeah, it's been a real positive one.
Great to hear. Okay, so I'm going to finish with the last question. I'm going to direct to you, Gaynor, who has a longest standing, probably, I think, in the UK programme team. You've been with us for how long?
Oh yeah, same as Liz, since 2017. So
2017,
yeah, 1st of June.
Gaynor. Yeah. So what is the one thing we can all do today to make a difference?
So probably a couple of things. So I would say number one would be go away from this event and tell one person what you've heard about today, as long as it's good. So go and tell them something that you've heard that you didn't realise or didn't know about Railway Children. Just tell one person. Follow us on social media if you don't already. Be in our eyes and ears, so maybe add the BTP text number to your phone, which is 61016. So if you did see anything on the rail network that you were unsure about, or something that your gut's telling you, oh, something here's not right, you can text it in. Also download the Railway Guardian app. But also I think, you know, for us as a charity, things are tough. We're always looking to expand our UK work. You know, find out maybe more about our events page. Can you take part in Three Peaks with Joe? Joe's doing Yorkshire Three Peaks on Friday, if anyone's free. Can you do, you know, a small fundraising event or a gift in kind, or link us in with a trust or a grant or someone within the industry who might be able to help us? Because for us, our work, so me and Liz have been here since 2017 when the first project began. We don't want to just be in places for a year, 2 years. We want to be across the whole of the UK and offer the opportunities that the young people talked about in their video to other young people who we know desperately need some of our support and help. So if there's any way that you can help us with awareness, fundraising, donations or anything like that, I would say that's the biggest difference you can make.